quite honestly, the Your Party mess continues to be easily the biggest vindication moment I think a lot of us have had in years. It has been so good to point out that no, this was the kind of stuff that was going on under Corbyn when he was running Labour too. One of the biggest, my biggest apparently sin is I've dared say that Jeremy Corbyn is not a good leader. And I know someone, clutches those pearls every single time they watch this video when I say that. But that is true. This entire Your Party episode has pretty much been a massive indication for all of us who basically, after Corbyn left, turned around and said, well, yeah, he wasn't that good. But there is still, of course, continuing this cult of Corbyn. My hope, at least, would be that maybe after all these fiascos and infighting and stuff, maybe this might finally get a lot of people to take off their rose tinted spectacles of Jeremy Corbyn and stop seeing him as some sort of magical granddad type figure. No, he never was. He was never a good leader, and that is part of the problem why Your Party has just been so bad on this. So today, once again, we are looking at the continuing mess that continues to be Your Party. Because it might be your party, but someone else will cry if they want to. So, as always, before we do get on into this, please do, of course, remember to click on the like, share, and, of course, subscribe button down below. Don't forget to, of course, ring the bell. There are links down below, the Patreon page, the Buy Me Coffee link where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and, of course, as always, there is the YouTube membership down below as well. QR code up here will take you straight to the Patreon page as well if you scan it. So, let's crack on then into this. And hopefully, I should be back from my conference that I've been down in London this weekend, if you're wondering why. Why the videos are sort of spaced out from this. So, as always, thank you very much for, again, all the support that you guys do show the channel and all that good stuff. So, let's crack on then into this. So, we've had 6 MPs and 4 factions. I just can't believe it. 4 different factions. And that's not even the worst of it. That's not even the worst of it. I've talked to a couple of people that have been to some of these Your Party meetings. Oh my. Because a couple of months ago, I did a video about how there's all these different, there's the SWP, the Socialist Workers' Party, the Communist Party, all these different, really weird leftist political parties. Again, political parties in the loosest term, trying to get involved in this, trying to assume their own power structure, get their people elected so that they can basically take over this, if it works. Because a lot of them are still hedging their bets as to whether this will work or not. So let's get on into this. So at an early meeting, set forth a path that would, of course, what would become Your Party. Participants, of course, very quickly agreed on one thing. Given the cliches about left-wing forever falling out, at all costs, they must avoid a descent into factionalism. Let's find out how that just turned out to be completely true. Anyway, 6 months on, and at the Liverpool venue hosting this weekend's inaugural Your Party conference has now been warned to expect potential disruption, including stage invasions by disgruntled members representing all particular wings, including now extra security guards have also been hired. Oh my God. Oh. Honestly, if the JCI UK conference had not been at the same time, I might have gone to this conference just to go and watch just what went on this, because I can guarantee you now there will be stuff that will be broken out over this weekend that will just be so funny. But anyway, back to this. So, how did An idea with so much potential traction and reach, now hundreds of thousands of people who signed up to support the idea of the movement spearheaded by Corbyn and Sultana before, of course, it even existed, become so quickly and comprehensively bogged down in power struggles and infighting. The simple and simplified answer is one agreed now on at least in private by people from all sides, is rooted now in escalating tensions between Corbyn, portrayed now as indecisive and at times very ambivalent about yet another political venture at the age now of 76, and Sultana, a combative former Labour MP who has now enraged colleagues by making major decisions unilaterally. I have to say, the stuff about Corbyn, that has not changed. That is what a lot of people were saying when he was leader as well. He was indecisive, ambivalent, really didn't have an idea, couldn't lead. He was just not a leader. It's simple as that. And yet, dare I say that? The gasps at the back. I can hear you saying that. Anyway, so let's continue on this. The ground zero now for the split being so comprehensive is that insiders say that Sultana has for the past 3 months mainly communicated with her now supposed colleagues through lawyers. This came about on the 3rd of July, or as known as Terrible Thursday, as one person calls it. I love that it being called Terrible Thursday. This was, of course, when Coventry South MP, of course, announced that she was resigning from Labour and would now jointly lead this new entity now with Corbyn. And I like how that is now referred to as Terrible Thursday. This news, of course, then followed a meeting, a very embryonic organisation earlier that day, which then the co-leadership was, of course, discussed. However, there was one problem. Corbyn and his allies firmly believed that no decision was made. To their surprise, Sultana then fait accompli briefed to the media, while an internal WhatsApp group then descended into intense disagreement. It took until the next afternoon for Corbyn then to publicly respond with a tweet pointedly saying that discussions were ongoing. It highlights now the contrast between the so often incomparable personalities of the party's protagonists, where one, Sultana, has either believed Corbyn for lack of a firm answer on co-leadership as a tacit yes, or simply chose to bounce him into it. You see why a lot of the lack of leadership, a lot of these people believed that they had a lot of power in the party where they really didn't. It was because there was just a vacuum, a bit of leadership. They weren't even really sure what to do. This led a lot of other MPs who might have been even potential allies for Corbyn, had no idea because they weren't kept in the loop as to even points where they were not even briefed about what manifesto or what was even going to be in the manifesto. So when it came out, they were like, oh, this is even my first time reading this. He was not a leader, and he's still not a leader. So even allies, of course, of Corbyn, as it continues, say the former Labour leader can be hard to pin down, even with an aversion to now open conflict and a tendency to do so, as one person involved in the project put it, disappear into his allotment for over 24 hours without his phone. Unbelievable. Jeremy can be a touch avoidant, one ally said. Another, of course, source involved in the project said was even more blunt. There has always been the problem that he won't say anything. You have this whole industry of Jeremy whisperers trying to interpret what he means. A source of Glenn close to Corbyn then disputed the idea that he was, of course, wary about leading the party and that he wanted members to, of course, decide. The idea that he had disappeared into his allotment was, they added, complete nonsense. Corbyn has said, lots of people have said lots of things about me, and I will carry on representing my community in Parliament and speaking out against inequality, poverty, and war. The first push for Corbyn, of course, to lead this new left-wing party came before, of course, last year's general election, which, pardon me, at once, of course, he stood in his Islington North seat as an independent. These overtures are, of course, then rebuffed. Those, of course, some, of course, who view him still as slightly reluctant, but he was urged on by Kate Murphy, his chief of staff when he was the Labour leader, and his wife, Laura Alvarez. After the election, Corbyn then suddenly found himself one now of 5 left-leaning independents, uh, along with the others, winning urban, now formerly Labour seats, focusing on Gaza platforms. 2 months later, they formally then joined the Independent Alliance. By this point, discussions had been on about the possibility of launching a new Corbyn-focused, not necessarily, of course, Corbyn-led political movement. While the platform, of course, specific policies will, of course, await agreement on leaders or even leaders of those involved in your party argue, they will have a voice distinct not just from Labour, but also then from the Greens, with a focus on community organising, internationalism, nationalism, and of course redistribution. From the start, there were of course difficulties, with one saying the first meeting was very disorganised, one source recalled. It was very late and they were all waiting for Jeremy to turn up, and then the agenda kept on changing. The coming months then produced progress, including an online factions for his party's philosophy, but also disagreements. For example, attempts now to create a very powerful role of General Secretary, viewed as a means for Murphy to take over. This now led into slight ponderous mixes and arrived at Sultana, whose punchy social media presence reflects an MP keen to get things done, but one now with a tendency to fall out with people who could be allies. Gee, that isn't how you basically sum up a lot of people on the left, isn't it? Very true. There are a lot of people who, again, we share very similar views, but treat me as if I'm an absolute enemy to be distrusted and not liked at all. But there you go. Zarah, of course, has made her own profile by, of course, being very combative, and of course, there is very clearly a place for that, said one observer. But her diplomacy has now been shockingly bad. There has been now a complete failure to either produce an alternate plan or even win people over. An ally of Sultana said that she sought to work very collaboratively, but was then excluded from any of the decision-making processes, and she remained now fully focused on the party and its mission. If the divide created on the 3rd of July was bad, worse was, of course, yet to come when Sultana now unilaterally launched a membership portal and collecting realms of data and, of course, about £800,000 in donations and levies. Your party has so far spent over £13,000 on a software system intended now for this process, and Sultana planned to use it for a membership drive, The Guardian is being told. But she was then thwarted when Corbyn's allies learned of her plans and sent a staffer into the organisation's office at 3 a.m. to change the passwords, sources now claim. Sultana, of course, then pressed on using her own software, prompting now fury from Corbyn. He accused Sultana of creating now a false membership system, one that, of course, collected money and data without any authorization, and said that your party had referred Sultana to the Information Commissioner's office. In response, Sultana said that she was just consulting defamation lawyers over what she called baseless claims of a sexist boys' club. God, these lawsuits are going to be so interesting when these come out and when these happen. This is going to be so interesting when all this stuff comes out. I can tell you that now. Since then, the tensions have become, of course, a lot less dramatic, if no less, of course, entrenched. Most now of the recent disagreement has now centered on, of course, how this money can be passed from holding companies set up before your party existed to the party now itself, which counterclaims of delay and failure to understand the basics now of company law. What a surprise. Possibly, of course, even more damaging was the departure, of course, 2 of the independent MPs, Sani and Mohammed. The former, of course, lashed out at what he called now a persistent infighting and a toxic, exclusionary, and deeply disheartening culture, and rancor best put on part of the issues such as transgender rights. For now, Adam and Khan do remain in place, but the departures do highlight the difficulties in trying to create a party encompassing Sultana and Corbyn, along now with more oftenly socially conservative electoral bases of the other independents, which is again quite true. A lot of these people are not those independents. They're not as necessarily as left wing as people think. They're not as left wing as people often thought, which is I've often said. Do your research if you intend to vote independent, even if at an MP. So, at one point, one person said, we had 6 MPs and 4 different factions. Another observer blamed on what they called now a bridge burning by Sultana, saying this is not to say that independent MPs are flawless, but if you are going to try and build a thing, then you need to work with a lot of people. As members now currently travel to Liverpool to decide on everything from a leadership structure to even the name, your party was only ever just an interim choice. Opinions differ now on what might come next. I think it's toast, said one participant. Said nothing on how, of course, the splits in your party have been mirrored by the surge in membership and attention now the Greens under the new leader of Zach Polanski. Some omens, of course, do remain very unpromising. Sultana's, of course, decision to now hold a self-organized pre-conference rally in Liverpool on Friday evening, build now an official your party event, annoyed the others in the party. And although your party members are, of course, barred from also being members of other parties, Sultana is now backed by the Socialist Unity Platform, a lobby organization compromising groups of the Communist Party of Great Britain. And it is, of course, here that possible disruption is now predicted. God, this is going to be an absolute disaster, isn't it? God. I'm almost depressed I'm not going. I am almost depressed I'm not going because honestly, this is generally looking like it is going to be an absolute clown show. This is going to be an absolute clown show. I'm depressed I can't go. This is I curse me being IPP. Anyway, others, of course, see the conference as a chance to finally, of course, move forward, especially if, of course, members choose the option for a collaborative rather than so leadership, thus now preventing the long and possibly brutal contest between Corbyn and Sultana. One reason, of course, for going so to a conference is because we can't decide anything amongst ourselves. So it is going now to the membership, one insider said. Then maybe a committee can move forward like normal human beings. Wow, that doesn't that entire quote there. A committee that can move forward like normal human beings. Wow. Oh, to be a fly on the wall in those committee meetings. Despite, of course, the drama, there is also now seemingly an appetite now for a left-wing challenger to Labour that is not, of course, the Greens, shown by, of course, the mass sign-ups and, of course, about 3,000 people heading to Liverpool for an event now only just weeks in the planning. This is a long-term project, said one person, who is now at least, for now, involved. Who knows what we're going to be in a couple of years? There are, of course, likely to be areas of the country that the Greens can't go into, and we could at least cooperate. By then, we might be saying, do you remember that absolutely mental period at the start? But this conference has proved that at least some stability and some structure, but that, of course, doesn't need to be perfect, but it does need that. Yeah, stability and structure. This has not been it. And a lot of people have said that. Why? Because Corbyn doesn't like that type of stuff. He just doesn't do it. It's not in his nature because that would require, oh, I don't know, leadership. It would require, of course, Zarah Sultana actually being able to get on with other people, and actually be diplomatic. If you want to build something like this, then you need to naturally work with people who might not 100% agree or share your ideas. But at least you do share common goals in a lot of other areas more than you agree on stuff more than you disagree. We'll see what happens, but oh boy, this conference looks like it's going to be an absolute mess. I'm sad I'm not going to be there for it. But as always, let me know, of course, what you think about all this because, oh boy, it looks like it's going to be a disaster, just constantly unfolding disaster. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.